Hi, it's Sally-Shakti, and this is Tarot and Astrology for Visionary Writers for the 6th to the 12th of March, 2023. And how are you feeling today in your body? The main astrology I'm going to be talking about this week is the big energy of the Virgo full moon and Saturn entering Pisces, which is happening on Tuesday, the 7th of March. That is at 12:40 p.m. GMT for the full moon and 13:35 for Saturn entering Pisces. So they're happening very, very close together. I spoke about these a lot in my Virgo full moon journaling practice video. So I'm not going to go into too much detail today, but I want to share about the energies that are, I feel, really powerfully opening up to support us as visionary writers and creatives at this time. The full moon in Virgo is bringing our focus and attention to our physical bodies, our physical needs. What do we need to take care of ourselves? Now, as writers, how much are we even aware of our bodies when we're writing and throughout the rest of our days? Are we hunched up? Are we dehydrated? Are we forgetting to eat, forgetting to get up and move, forgetting to take a drink of water, forgetting to go to the toilet? These are all things that we can sit at our writing desk and either be so absorbed in the writing or be so stuck in procrastination that we forget to tend to our bodies. I think this is very common, very prevalent in writers and in visionary writers in particular. And I also think it's something that we learned through our education system, particularly our Western capitalist education, that where we were taught to sit still, not move, and really just be brains that were working on a stick. I know that throughout my early education, right through until I completed my first degree, I felt like a zombie. I couldn't feel my body. I wasn't aware of my body. I felt extremely dissociated and detached from the physical world around me, and I didn't feel present. I felt like there was a fog between me and the world. And that's because I wasn't aware of my body. I wasn't taking notice of my body. I didn't know what my body needed. I didn't know how to listen to what my body was communicating. And I didn't know how to take care of what my body needed in terms of nourishment, movement, breath. It wasn't until I started my yoga practice back in 2002 that I began gradually, slowly to come back more into my body and to learn and experience how important it was for me to be in my body, to move and to stretch and to breathe. And as my practice developed, as my movement practice developed and my writing practice developed, I began to make connections between the way that my body was moving and the connections and the structures and the rhythms that were possible in my writing. And that's really where my writing is at its most vibrant and alive, when the structures and the rhythms that I'm creating in my words and on the page are connected to the structures and the rhythms that I'm experiencing physically in my body. And that has fluctuated, waxed and waned, throughout my years, and it does also fluctuate throughout the rhythm of the year, the seasonal cycles. But it's always important for me to come back to my body. When I was writing my PhD, my writing was focused on embodiment, and yet my poetry was focused on embodiment. My research was focused on embodied material practices in writing, and yet when I was sitting and writing my thesis, again my body would be neglected. And so after my PhD, I went and lived full-time, permanently, for many months in a personal development community where I could do physical, energetic practices, dynamic meditations, emotional release work every single day. And that brought me back into my body and has helped me to do a lot of work to release a lot of the stored traumas and carried stories that I've been holding in my body, and that have been continuing to influence my behaviors. I'm not saying I've done all of that. It's a continual process. For me, I keep coming back to the physical practice. It's as important for me now as the writing practice. In fact, it's essential to be present on the page. I need to be present in my physical body. Writing has always been a physical process for me, a physical practice. The movement of the pen on the page is very physical. I do encourage people to write by hand and to move the pen across the page physically. And yet there's more, I think, that we're being encouraged to do now as writers and as visionaries, as we come into this alignment this week of the full moon in Virgo. As I said, Virgo is going to be inviting us into our bodies to take care of ourselves physically and energetically. Virgo, the virgin, the one who is autonomous in her own sexual and physical energy, the one who cultivates her own creative life force, her own kundalini, and who is able to work with that and hold that charge, to be the light by holding her own charge, her own self-empowerment. This is what, regardless of our gender, this is what we're being invited to do now as visionary writers. And as we move through into the next 3 years with Saturn in Pisces, Saturn is going to invite us and challenge us to create structures and the forms that we need to support us, to bring our visionary work into the world. That means finding rhythms and routines in our physical bodies and in our daily lives that support us to take responsibility for putting our writing out there, for getting the words on the page and getting them out. We're here for a reason. We're here to share our stories, our words, our poems, our insights and inspirations, whatever it is. We're here to do that. And that comes with a responsibility. It's like we've been playing with it for a few years, getting a sense of what it feels like. And Saturn moving into Pisces now, it invites us to get serious and become responsible for this gift we've been given, because we're here to share it with others. And how do we get to do that? We, first of all, take care of our own bodies. Pisces, so Saturn's going to be in Pisces for the next 3 years. Saturn wants us to take responsibility. Pisces is this openness, this out of the body energy, this etheric vastness, the void, the completion, the letting go. Saturn in the next 3 years will be completing its journey around the zodiac and then beginning a new cycle again when it moves into Aries in 3 years' time. So what are we completing? What are we letting go of? What are we stepping out of, so that we can step into this new version of ourselves that is more autonomous physically, energetically, more able to cultivate and control and sustain our own creative energy, so that we can utilize it in service of others, in creative service, in ways that support ourselves. I feel this is particular to me, but I'm feeling that this is something that is important for all of us as a collective, visionary, creative writers. We're being invited not to give ourselves away, like perhaps we have done in the past, various forms of service through martyrdom. That's a very Pisces energy as well. To give ourselves away, to overgive, and to find out that we've spent all of our creative energy and we have nothing left for ourselves to nourish us, and we have nothing left to do the project that really was calling to us. Because often we might find ourselves rejecting or negating the one clear creative thing that's calling to us, because we felt that it isn't viable, it isn't valid, it's not what we really, it's not going to make us a living, or we've got other things to do, and we prioritize these other things in our lives. Saturn in Pisces is going to invite us to really come into maturity with this, to prioritize our creative projects, because that's not only our responsibility it's our gift, and it's our responsibility to share our creativity with others, because we hold the vision, collectively, we hold a vision, we're calling in a vision of the new structures that we are co-creating here on the earth. And we bring that vision in through our physical bodies into our creative practice, into collective service. So Saturn is really inviting us to get serious about that and to get mature about that, to recognize what are our gifts, our strengths, and our responsibilities, and to nourish our own physical bodies in ways that nurture and support us to actually bring our vision into service in the world. That is what we're here for. Virgo is encouraging us to, and Saturn in Pisces is encouraging us to make sure we have the financial stability, we have the physical nurturing, we have the things that we need in the material world that will support us to open up more fully to the vision that is coming through, and then to bring that into form. And to do that, we have to channel it. We have to, it does become limited as it comes through us, because it's got to come into physical form in this world. So we need to put a structure around it. We need to put a container around it. And in order to do that, I'm sensing it's important to invite and cultivate that structure in our own lives so that we can more fully take responsibility for the visions that we are here to share. Now, that's not to put people under undue pressure to be something that you're not, or to, again, burn yourself out through doing all these things that aren't really serving you physically. It's to nourish and come back home to your own body so that you understand your own needs, your own limitations, and you can start to create your own structures in your life that will serve you to more fully open up to the vision that wants to come through you uniquely, and then create the structures that will enable you to bring that into form so that you can share that with others, with the world. We're really part now of this co-creation of the new structures. And to do that, we need to make friends with Saturn. And many of us visionary creatives probably haven't had such a great relationship with Saturn, because Saturn is responsibility, materiality, the 3D world, time, all of these things, money, all of these things that are often more challenging for us, who are typically more open to a new vision that's already starting to come through. But the message is, in this next 3 years, we're being invited to learn and to master how to, if we really want to bring that vision into form, then we need to make friends with form, and so that we can start to serve in the ways that we are here to do. Writing is all about structure, particularly poetry or any form of writing is about form and structure. But again, I'll go back to education. Typically, we're not told, and we're not taught to notice and see the form and the structure. Often in schools, we are taught to read and write for meaning only. I was a teacher, I've been through it. I was at school and I was a teacher, I've been through it. It wasn't until I got to university that I started to look at the materiality of the words on the page, and the way that that materiality is very subtly but profoundly magical in what it does physically, how it brings ideas, rhythms, new structures, new forms into the physical world. There's no other way of doing it. Any new idea that comes in, any new image, any new vision has to come through our bodies into physical form, whether that's through writing, whether that's through speaking, whether that's through drawing, performance, whatever it is, that's how it comes through. It's going to come through us uniquely through our own bodies, and collectively through our physical beings. And this is what I find really exciting about co-creation, co-creativity, because we're not doing this all by ourselves. It's not me calling in a whole new vision for the world. It's not you calling in what you think is going to be the best utopian idea for everyone. For me, utopia is about gesturing towards what is possible and bringing that in its limited form into the physical world through our bodies and through our practices. Because we're in relationship always. We're in relationship with the context of the world that we live in. We're in relationship with each other. And so what we create is always a co-creation within the limitations that we are currently bound by. And that's Saturn. When I think about form and structure in writing, particularly poetry, but of course in narrative as well, that's what creates the container for the story or the poem to emerge. If I'm sitting there looking at a blank page and waiting for the perfect poem to show up on it, I will stay with a blank page or stay with an empty page, because the perfect poem will never show up. All I can do is call in the next word and the next word and the next word and lay them down on the page and see what form they take. And then I can work with them to shape their structure and their rhythm. But in order to bring it in, I have to bring it into form, which means it has to come through a container. It is therefore limited, and we are limited by the constraints of the container that we're in, that is the world. But we're in relationship with it. We're co-creating with it, which means we can change it. And in order to do so, we need to be in relationship with it. And we need to then take responsibility for dreaming in and bringing in and calling in and co-creating the new forms and the new structures that we uniquely and collectively are here to birth. So it's a big one. It's a big invitation. Don't let that put you under too much pressure. Just breathe with it and be with it and move your body. That's what, keep coming back to the body. I feel like in this next 3 years, it's going to be more important than ever for those of us who are visionary writers and creatives to find ways to have a practice, to have a physical practice. We need also to be in connection with other people. We need to be in community, and we need to be in physical practice that keeps us in our bodies so that we can be at our peak when we are bringing this vision into the world. And I don't want to, that's not intended to be an ableist comment. Every one of us has our own unique structure physically that we are working with, and we all need to work with the physicality that we are given and that we have cultivated and that we are working with to become more aware, to be invited more into relationship with our own bodies, because I do feel that that's something that this world, this capitalist patriarchal world, has disembodied us and disconnected us from true, meaningful, connected relationship with our own physicality. And that then has had an impact of disconnecting us from meaningful relationship with the physical world and meaningful relationship with the form and structure of our creative process. So these things are entangled, and the more we can breathe and feel and maybe touch our own skin, notice our own boundaries, come back into movement if that's appropriate, the more we can bring ourselves back into life and into relationship with our own creative energy and with the own physical, with our physical world, so that we can be more responsible and mature in our co-creation. So that's a big thing. Today's tarot card that jumped out for us is the Four of Pentacles from the Light Seekers Tarot by Chris Ann. This Four of Pentacles is a beautiful reminder to come back home to our bodies, to cultivate and to tend to our own energy, our own physical energy. One's is a lot about our creative energy. This Four of Pentacles is really also a lot about our physical energy. How are our bodies? Where do we need to rest and tend to ourselves? What do we need to nourish us and support us so that we then can come into creative service and take responsibility for the gifts we're given, to really step up as active participants in the co-creation of this world. So that's our invitation from Four of Pentacles, and it's the invitation to come back to the body in reverence, is the word that's coming to me, with love, compassion, and reverence and nurturance. And this very much fits this energy of the Virgo full moon, coming back into center with ourselves, breathing, feeling, resting, turning away from the demands of the external world if we need to come back home to our bodies first, and to co-create from that place of nourishment, satisfaction. But it's more than that. It's a deeply somatic experience of having what we need. And that's what our bodies are asking for, whatever that looks like for you. And we may be needing to experiment with that over the next few years. But this next 3 years for me, with Saturn entering Pisces, is an invitation to let go of what no longer serves us, what we're no longer needing to carry, what no longer moves us forward, and come into a more mature relationship with our own physicality and our own physical world, so that when Saturn moves into Aries and starts a new cycle around the zodiac, we can be really ready and well practiced at bringing our creative vision into form in service of the world. So that's our big invitation for this week. Come back to your body, bringing it back down, one breath at a time, bringing it really back down to the breath. I mean, I see how she, in this picture, is nurturing and tending her own body with her hands. She's turned away from the world, and she is nourishing herself, holding on to her own energy and not giving away what is hers and what she has created for herself and what she has cultivated through her own practice. That's the symbol of the Virgin for me. That's the invitation of this Virgo full moon, and that's our invitation into practice this week as visionary writers and creatives, to come back home to the body, to come back home to the breath, to nurture our own physical and creative energy, so that we can show up and be of greater service as we continue to practice ways of bringing our creative visions into form. So thank you so much for being with me today. It's a pleasure to be here with you. If you're watching this in relative real time, I will be live in my Facebook group on Thursday evenings through March at 6:30 p.m. GMT, and we'll be doing more work around this very strong energy, particularly around these energies that we're coming into now, and the powerful Aries energy that we're also entering, that we're also in. We'll be doing work, really, having discussions, talking, practicing about cultivating and sustaining our own creative life force energy. So that's a lot of what I've been talking about today. So if you want to join me for more of that, come over to the Facebook group at Writing Thriving. The group is called the Writing and Thriving Spiral for Visionary Writers, or at Writing Thriving is the page. I'm also going live on my Instagram at Writing Thriving a few times this week as well, with conversations that I'm having, creative astro chat tomorrow at the time of the full moon and the Saturn entering Pisces with Martika May. I'll be talking on the spring equinox on the 21st of March with Amir from Luna's Women's Group, and I'll be talking on Facebook on the 14th of March with Alora Odell, and we're talking about our Ancestral Connection writing course and retreat. So there's a lot coming up. Stay tuned, and most importantly, stay connected to your own body, your own breath, and your own physicality. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.